Story 1. The Magical Forest and the Little Explorer. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village surrounded by tall green hills, there lived a curious child named Oliver. Oliver was 8 years old and had the brightest pair of eyes that sparkled every time he discovered something new. Unlike other children who spent their afternoons playing simple games in the fields, Oliver had one big dream. He wanted to explore the mysterious forest that everyone in the village talked about, but nobody dared to enter. The villagers believed that the forest was enchanted. Some said it was filled with talking animals, while others whispered about glowing rivers, singing flowers, and trees that could walk at night. Adults often warned the children, "Stay away from the forest. It is not safe." But to Oliver, these warnings only made the forest sound even more exciting. One sunny morning, as the golden rays of the sun poured into his little wooden house, Oliver made up his mind. He packed a small bag with a piece of bread, a flask of water, and his favorite red scarf. With a determined smile, he whispered to himself, "Today, I will discover the secrets of the magical forest." As Oliver stepped beyond the last fence of the village, he noticed how the air changed. It became cooler, fresher, and filled with the soft fragrance of wildflowers. The forest stood tall before him, its enormous trees swaying gently as if greeting him. Oliver took a deep breath and entered. The moment he crossed the boundary, something incredible happened. The forest seemed alive. The leaves rustled as if whispering his name. The flowers stretched toward him, and the ground beneath his feet glowed faintly. He gasped in wonder. "This is even more magical than I imagined." After walking for a while, Oliver came across a squirrel with fur so golden it shimmered like the sun. To his surprise, the squirrel spoke. "Hello, little traveler. What brings you here?" Oliver's eyes widened. "You can talk," the squirrel chuckled. "Of course. Everything in this forest can, if you choose to listen." The squirrel introduced himself as Sunny. He offered to guide Oliver deeper into the forest, warning him that not every part of the forest was friendly. Some paths led to endless mazes, others to sleeping giants who must never be disturbed. Excited but cautious, Oliver followed Sunny. They soon reached a meadow where flowers of all colors sang in harmony. Each flower had a tiny glowing face, and together their songs filled the air with joy. Oliver clapped and laughed. "This is the most beautiful concert I have ever heard." Next, they discovered a sparkling blue river. Instead of flowing water, the river carried streams of light, like liquid stars. Oliver knelt beside it, dipping his fingers into the glowing water. It felt warm, and when he pulled his hand out, tiny lights danced on his skin before fading. "This river," Sunny explained, "is the river of dreams. If you make a wish here, it will be carried to the night sky." Oliver closed his eyes and whispered, "I wish for everyone in my village to believe in magic again." Suddenly, the water rippled, and a soft voice echoed, "Your wish will shine among the stars tonight." Deeper into the forest, Oliver and Sunny encountered a large, ancient tree with a door carved into its trunk. Curiosity bubbling inside him, Oliver knocked on the door. To his amazement, it opened, revealing a library of endless books guarded by an old wise owl named Professor Hoots. "Welcome, young explorer," the owl said in a deep, kind voice. "This library holds the stories of the forest. Every leaf, every stone, every creature has a story written here." Oliver's eyes sparkled. "Can I read one?" Professor Hoots nodded and handed him a glowing book. As Oliver opened it, the pages turned into moving pictures, showing him the history of the magical forest, the time when the trees first learned to walk, the moment the stars created the river of dreams, and how the forest promised to protect anyone who entered with a pure heart. Hours passed, but Oliver felt as though only minutes had gone by. Finally, Sunny reminded him that the sun was setting. You must return before nightfall. The forest grows different under the moonlight. Oliver nodded reluctantly, thanking Professor Hoots for sharing the stories. On their way back, the forest seemed to cheer him. Onflowers hummed softly. The trees bent to form a safe path, and the glowing river shimmered as if waving goodbye. When Oliver stepped out of the forest and looked back, he realized that the entrance had vanished. It was as if the forest had hidden itself again, waiting for the next dreamer to discover it. That night, Oliver returned to his village with a heart full of wonder. As he gazed at the starry sky, he noticed one star shining brighter than all the others. He smiled, knowing it carried his wish. From that day on, Oliver became the storyteller of his village. Every night, children gathered around him to hear about the magical forest. And though some adults still doubted, the sparkle in their children's eyes slowly reminded them that magic was real if only they chose to believe. And so, the legend of the magical forest lived on, passed down from one dreamer to another, forever inspiring children to see the world with wonder. The end. Story 2, Lila and the Kingdom of Clouds. Once upon a time, high above the tallest mountains, farther than the birds could fly, and hidden beyond the reach of ordinary eyes, there was a kingdom made entirely of clouds. Its castles were soft and glowing, its streets were woven from silver mist, and its gardens bloomed with rainbows that arched in every direction. The people who lived there were not like ordinary people. They had wings made of pure light, and their laughter sounded like wind chimes ringing in the breeze. No one on earth knew this kingdom existed, no one except a little girl named Lila. Lila lived in a quiet seaside town. She was a dreamer, the kind of child who spent more time watching the sky than playing games on the ground. Every evening she would sit by her window, staring at the stars as though they were speaking secrets only she could hear. While other children drifted off to sleep, she stayed awake, tracing shapes in the clouds and wondering if adventures were waiting for her beyond the horizon. One night, when the moon was brighter than usual and the stars looked close enough to touch, something magical happened. A golden feather floated gently down from the sky and landed on her windowsill. It shimmered as if it held sunlight inside it, glowing warmly against her hand when she picked it up. Before she could even wonder where it came from, the feather lifted into the air, pulling her with it. In an instant, Lila found herself soaring upward, higher and higher, past rooftops, over mountains, and into the endless sky. She drifted through layers of white clouds until the world below disappeared completely. And then she saw the Kingdom of Clouds. A tall figure with glowing wings appeared before her. "Welcome, Lila," said the figure with a gentle voice. "I am Seraphina, guardian of the skies. The golden feather has chosen you." Lila's eyes grew wide. "Chosen me? For what?" Seraphine's face was kind, but her words were serious. "Our kingdom is in danger. The Storm King, who dwells in the dark clouds, wishes to take away our light and fill the sky with endless thunder. Only someone pure of heart can help us stop him, and the feather has chosen you." Lila's heart pounded. She had never fought a storm before, but something inside her whispered that this was the adventure she had been waiting for. She nodded with determination. "I'll help," she said bravely. Seraphina smiled and placed a glowing pendant in Lila's hands. "This will guide you. To protect our kingdom, you must find the 3 missing pieces of the sky crown. When the crown is whole again, it will shine with the power to defeat the Storm King." Lila set out on her quest, her eyes wide with wonder at everything around her. She passed cloud castles that sparkled in the moonlight, gardens where rainbows grew like flowers, and fountains that spilled raindrops that laughed like children as they fell. Winged children floated by, their giggles ringing through the air. For a moment, she forgot the danger. But then, a deep rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, reminding her why she was there. The pendant glowed softly, leading her first to a shimmering cave shaped from silver clouds. Inside, her voice echoed 1,000 times when she whispered, "At the center of the cave was a crystal throne, and on it rested the first piece of the sky crown. But guarding it was a shadowy beast made of thunder, its eyes flashing like lightning. It growled, 'Only those who face their fear may pass.'" Lila trembled but took a deep breath. She remembered her grandmother's words. Bravery is not the absence of fear. But moving forward, despite it, she stepped closer and said firmly, "I am not afraid of you. You are only made of fear, and fear cannot stop me." At once, the beast dissolved into mist, leaving the crown piece behind. With courage building in her heart, Lila followed the pendant's light to a magnificent rainbow bridge that stretched across the sky. It glowed with colors more vivid than she had ever seen. She stepped onto it, but the colors faded beneath her feet, turning gray. A voice whispered, "To cross, you must give something of your heart." Lila thought hard. She carried with her a seashell necklace, a gift from her mother and her most treasured possession. Her eyes filled with tears as she removed it, but with a steady hand she placed it on the bridge. The moment she let go, the rainbow blazed with brilliant light, forming a solid path to the other side. When she reached the end, the second piece of the sky crown appeared before her. She held it tightly, whispering, "For my mother, for the kingdom, for hope." The pendant guided her once more, this time to a frozen garden made of silent clouds. The flowers were covered in frost, their petals drooping as though they were asleep. The air was heavy with stillness, and even the sound of her breath seemed too loud. At the center stood a pedestal with the final piece of the crown. Surrounding it were tall statues made of ice, shaped like people frozen in time. As Lila reached out her hand, the statues spoke in a haunting whisper. "Speak the truth of who you are, or remain frozen forever." Lila's heart raced. She thought of pretending to be someone stronger, someone braver, but she knew they would see through her. She closed her eyes and said, "I am Lila, just a little girl from Earth. I don't have wings or magic, but I have kindness, and I believe in light." The statues cracked and melted away, and the last piece of the crown shimmered into her hands. With all three pieces, she hurried back to Serafina. Together they assembled the sky crown, which blazed with light so powerful it lit the entire sky. Just in time, the Storm King appeared, his dark clouds rolling in, lightning flashing across his massive form. His voice boomed like thunder. "Give me your light, or I will cover the skies in endless storms." But Lila stood tall, the crown shining on her head. Its glow burst outward, a brilliant wave of golden beams that tore through the Storm King's darkness. He roared in anger as his form crumbled into harmless raindrops that fell softly over the kingdom. The skies cleared, glowing brighter than ever. The kingdom of clouds rejoiced. Serafina embraced Lila, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You have saved us. Because of your courage, the skies will remain filled with light and hope." The golden feather returned, carrying Lila gently back to her room. She opened her eyes to find herself safe in her bed. As the morning sun shone through her window, for a moment she wondered if it had all been a dream. But then she saw the crystal pendant resting on her windowsill, glowing softly. From that day on, whenever storm clouds gathered in the sky, Lila would look upward and smile, remembering that she had once saved the kingdom of clouds, and that even the smallest child could bring light to the darkest sky. The end. Story 3. The secret lake beneath the stars long ago. In a quiet valley surrounded by rolling green hills and tall whispering trees, there was a little village where the nights were darker than anywhere else in the land. The villagers often looked up at the sky and marveled at how the stars twinkled so brightly above them. Children would sit outside, pointing out shapes and constellations. And the elders would tell stories about how each star carried a secret wish. But none of them knew the truth that hidden deep in the forest, there was a secret lake that mirrored the stars. And anyone who found it could speak to the heavens themselves. No one knew, that is, until a curious little girl named Amelia discovered it. Amelia was known in her village for her adventurous spirit. While other children liked to stay close to their homes, Amelia often wandered into the woods, following butterflies, chasing the sound of distant streams, and collecting shiny stones that glistened like jewels in her pockets. Her parents worried about her curious nature, but Amelia always promised, "Don't worry, I'll be back before the sun sets." And she always kept her word until one extraordinary night. It began on a summer evening when Amelia noticed a star brighter than any she had ever seen. It shimmered directly above the forest, glowing with a light that seemed to call her. "It's almost like it wants me to follow it," she whispered to herself. The star pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, and Amelia felt her feet carrying her into the trees before she could even think twice. The forest was alive with the soft sound of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. But tonight it felt different, like every branch and every stone was guiding her somewhere important. She walked deeper and deeper until she came to a clearing she had never seen before. There, hidden beneath the canopy of trees, was a lake unlike any other. Its waters were perfectly still, like a giant mirror laid across the earth. But it did not reflect the trees or the moon. Instead, it reflected the sky in a way that was impossible. The stars above seemed closer, brighter, as if they were floating just beneath the water's surface. Amelia gasped in wonder. "It's like the stars have fallen into the lake," she exclaimed. She knelt down and touched the water with her fingertips. To her amazement, the ripples spread like glittering light, and the reflection of the stars danced and shimmered as though alive. Suddenly, a voice rose from the lake, soft and musical, like the sound of wind chimes. "Welcome, Amelia." She looked around in surprise, but saw no one. "Who's there?" she asked nervously. The water rippled, and from the center of the lake rose a glowing figure made of starlight. It was neither man nor woman, but something more, an ethereal guardian of the night. "I am the keeper of the lake," the figure said. "For centuries, this place has been hidden, waiting for a pure heart to find it. And now, you are here." Amelia's eyes sparkled. "Why me?" she asked. The keeper smiled. "Because you believe. Most people forget the magic of the stars when they grow older, but you still see them with wonder. That is why you were chosen." Amelia's heart raced with excitement. "What does it mean to be chosen?" The keeper's voice grew gentle. "It means you may ask the stars for a gift, but only if your wish comes from kindness and not from greed." Amelia thought carefully. She could have wished for gold, or toys, or even endless adventures, but then she remembered how her grandmother often struggled to see at night, and how her little brother was afraid of the dark. Looking at the glowing lake, she said softly, "I wish for my village to always have light at night, so no one is ever afraid of the dark again." The keeper's eyes shone with pride. "A selfless wish is the most powerful of all." The stars in the lake shimmered brighter, and beams of light rose into the sky, filling the valley with a gentle glow. From that night forward, whenever the moon hid behind the clouds, the stars shone twice as brightly over Amelia's village, guiding travelers, comforting children, and bringing peace to the people. But Amelia's adventure was not over. The keeper explained that the lake would appear to her whenever she truly needed guidance. Remember, the keeper said, the stars listen to those who listen to them. With that, the figure dissolved back into the water, leaving the lake still and silent once more. Amelia sat by the shore for a long time, staring at the twinkling reflection. She felt a sense of calm she had never known before. Finally, she stood, promising the lake, "I'll come back. I'll always remember." And with that, she returned home. When Amelia arrived, her parents scolded her for being out so late, but she only smiled. "I found something magical," she whispered. That night, as the villagers looked up at the sky, they noticed how the stars were shining brighter than ever before. The children laughed and pointed, saying they looked close enough to touch. The elders shook their heads in wonder, unsure of what had changed. Only Amelia knew the truth. She had spoken to the stars, and they had listened. As the years went by, Amelia grew older, but she never forgot the secret lake. Sometimes, when she felt lost or unsure, she would slip quietly into the forest and follow the path only she could see. And every time, the lake would be there, waiting for her, reflecting the stars and reminding her that magic was real for those who believed. And though no one else in the village ever found it, the light in the night sky never faded, shining down as a gift from the stars to the little girl who had wished not for herself but for everyone she loved. The end. Story 4. The Clockmaker's Secret Garden. In the middle of a bustling little town, there stood a tiny shop that most people walked past without even noticing. Its windows were always dusty, its wooden sign faded, and its doorbell made the softest sound, like a whisper in the wind. Above the door, carved into the wood, were the words, "Tobias the Clockmaker." Children often pressed their noses against the glass to peek inside, and what they saw made their eyes widen in wonder shelves filled with hundreds of clocks. There were tall grandfather clocks with golden pendulums, tiny pocket watches that sparkled like stars, and cuckoo clocks that chirped sweet little tunes at the top of every hour. But no one truly knew the old clockmaker's secret. No one, that is, until a curious boy named Henry discovered it. Henry was the kind of boy who loved puzzles and mysteries. While other children played ball or ran through the streets, Henry spent his afternoons sketching inventions in his notebook or taking apart broken toys just to see how they worked. One day, as he walked past the shop, he heard something strange. Among the ticking and chiming of all the clocks, there was another sound, like soft laughter coming from behind the walls. Intrigued, Henry pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. The clockmaker Tobias was an elderly man with silver hair and spectacles that always seemed to slide down his nose. He looked up from the tiny gears he was polishing and smiled kindly. "Ah, welcome, young man. Not many visit my shop these days. Do you like clocks?" Henry nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. They're like puzzles that never stop moving." Tobias chuckled. "Indeed they are. Every clock has a heart that keeps it alive. Would you like to see something special?" Henry's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." With a knowing smile, Tobias led Henry to the back of the shop, past shelves of ticking wonders, until they reached a large grandfather clock that stood taller than the ceiling. Its face glowed faintly, and instead of numbers, it had stars carved into it. Tobias pressed his hand against the wooden frame, and to Henry's amazement, the clock swung open like a door. Behind it was not a wall, but a shimmering passage filled with golden light. Henry gasped. "Is this a secret room?" Tobias winked. "Not just a room. Come and see." They stepped through, and Henry could hardly believe his eyes. Before him stretched a vast hidden garden, glowing beneath an endless sky of twilight. Flowers as tall as trees swayed gently, their petals ticking softly like clock hands. Butterflies with wings shaped like hourglasses drifted through the air, leaving trails of sparkling sand behind them. Fountains poured streams of glowing time instead of water, and every stone, leaf, and flower seemed to hum with the sound of ticking clocks. "This," Tobias said softly, "is the Garden of Time." Henry's jaw dropped. "It's beautiful, but what is it?" Tobias placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It is where time is born. Every second, every minute, every hour begins here before it flows out into the world. This garden has existed for centuries, and I am its keeper. The clocks in my shop are not just ordinary clocks. They are doors that connect this garden to the world outside." Henry wandered in awe, touching the petals of a flower that shone like a golden sun. "And the laughter I heard earlier." Tobias smiled. "Ah, you must have heard the time sprites." At that moment, tiny, glowing creatures darted through the air, giggling as they carried small bundles of light. They looked like children made of stars, their eyes sparkling as they scattered seconds like seeds into the air. Henry laughed with delight as one sprite landed on his shoulder, whispering, "Tick-tock, tick-tock, don't let time stop." As magical as it was, Tobias's face grew serious. "But the garden is in danger," he admitted. "There are shadows that want to steal time, to freeze the world forever. That is why I keep the clocks running. They protect the flow of time. And now that you have seen this place, you may have a part to play." Henry straightened proudly. "I want to help. Tell me what I must do." That very night, the danger arrived. The garden suddenly darkened, and the glowing fountains slowed to a trickle. From the edges of the twilight sky crept long, slithering shadows that hissed as they moved. The time sprites darted nervously, their laughter turning into cries. Tobias whispered urgently, "Those are the still ones. They want to trap time and make the world motionless." Henry's heart raced, but he clenched his fists. "What can we do?" Tobias handed him a small golden key. "This is the key of ours. Place it in the heart clock at the center of the garden, and it will banish the shadows. But you must be brave, for the still ones will try to stop you." With determination, Henry ran across the glowing grass, the shadows slithering closer with every step. The heart clock stood tall in the middle of the garden, its face shining faintly but struggling to tick. Just as Henry reached it, the shadows surged forward, wrapping around his legs and whispering, "Stay still." Forever still. Henry trembled, but he remembered the time sprite's words. "Tick-tock, don't let time stop." With all his strength, he pushed the golden key into the clock and turned it. In an instant, the heart clock blazed with golden light. Its pendulum swung with a thunderous tick, and waves of shining time burst outward, scattering the shadows into nothingness. The fountains gushed brightly once more, the flowers bloomed, and the time sprites cheered, swirling around Henry in a dazzling dance of light. Tobias placed a proud hand on his shoulder. "You have done it, Henry. You have saved the flow of time." The garden slowly faded, and Henry found himself back in the clock shop. The grandfather clock behind him ticked softly, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Tobias looked at him with a twinkle in his eyes. "You are always welcome here, my boy. Remember, time is the greatest gift we have. Use it wisely." Henry left the shop that evening with his heart full of wonder. Though the village streets looked the same, he now knew that every second of every day was born in a magical garden, hidden just beyond the reach of ordinary eyes. And whenever he passed by the old clockmaker's shop, he couldn't help but smile. For he knew that time itself was ticking happily, because he had once saved it. The end. Story 5. melody, and the song of light, once upon a time. In a valley filled with rolling green hills and shimmering streams, there was a village where music filled the air every day. The villagers believed that music was not just entertainment, but a gift of happiness that could chase away sadness and even make flowers bloom brighter. Among them lived a little girl named Melody, who loved music more than anything else in the world. Melody had a violin carved by her grandfather, and although it looked small and simple, it held a secret that even she did not know. Every time she played, something magical stirred in the world around her. Birds would gather on the rooftops to listen. Rabbits would peek out of their burrows, and even the wind seemed to dance with the notes she played. Melody spent her mornings practicing near the village fountain and her evenings by the fire, dreaming of one day playing for the entire kingdom. But one spring morning, something unusual happened. As Melody played her violin beneath a blossoming cherry tree, she noticed a trail of golden butterflies floating in the air, swaying to her music. They moved, not randomly, but in rhythm with her song, as though they were dancing. Entranced, Melody followed them into the forest. Her violin tucked under her arm, the butterflies guided her deeper and deeper until she reached a clearing where an enormous oak tree stood. Its trunk was wide and ancient, and carved into it was a door shaped like a musical note. Melody gasped, for she had never seen anything like it. When she touched the door, it creaked open, and she stepped inside. The inside of the oak tree was like a concert hall, lit with glowing mushrooms, vines shaped like harpstrings, and crystal droplets that chimed like bells whenever they dripped. At the center stood a grand piano with keys that glowed softly. On top of it sat a small, wise-looking owl with spectacles perched on its beak. "Ah, you must be Melody," the owl hooted kindly, "but I have been waiting for you. This is the Tree of Harmony, and only those with a true love for music can enter. You have been chosen to protect the balance of sound in our world." Melody blinked in surprise. "Protect the balance of sound?" she asked. The owl nodded. "Darkness seeks to silence music, to fill the world with fear and gloom. But your violin holds a power that can keep the harmony alive." The owl fluttered down and handed her a tiny silver key, shaped like a treble clef. "With this key, you can unlock the song of light hidden within your violin. But beware, a shadow named Discord will try to stop you." Melody felt nervous but determined. She thanked the owl and promised she would do her best. From that day on, strange things began to happen in her village. The cheerful songs of birds faded, the stream stopped its bubbling tune, and the villagers found themselves humming off-key. It was as though joy itself was slipping away. Melody knew it was Discord's doing. That night, as the moon rose, she stood in the village square and lifted her violin. With trembling hands, she inserted the silver key into a small groove she had never noticed before. A soft click echoed, and suddenly her violin shimmered with golden light. When she played her first note, a beam of light shot into the sky, scattering the clouds and painting the stars brighter. But in the shadows of the alley, Discord appeared. He was tall and cloaked in mist, his eyes like empty wells, and he carried a staff that seemed to absorb sound itself. "So, the little musician dares to challenge me," he hissed. With a sweep of his staff, the square fell silent. Even the crickets ceased their song. Melody felt fear creep into her heart, but she remembered the owl's words. Closing her eyes, she played a melody her grandfather had taught her, one filled with love and warmth. The golden butterflies returned, swirling around her violin. As she played faster and stronger, the butterflies formed a shield of light. Discord's staff cracked and hissed as though it couldn't withstand the harmony. The villagers, awakened by the glowing light, gathered around and watched. Slowly, they began clapping in rhythm, then humming, then singing. Their voices, joined together, grew louder and more powerful. Discord shrieked and tried to silence them. But the combined strength of Melody's violin and the villagers' voices pushed him back. With one final note that rang like a bell across the valley, Melody broke his staff in half. Discord howled and dissolved into a cloud of dust that the wind carried away. The moment he vanished, the world seemed to breathe again. Birds began singing, the stream resumed its bubbling laughter, and the flowers opened their petals wide. Melody's violin glowed one last time before settling back into its wooden form. The owl appeared once more, perched atop the fountain, and bowed to Melody. "You have restored the harmony," he said with pride. "But remember, music must always be shared. Its magic grows strongest when it is given freely." Melody nodded, understanding now that her gift was not just for herself, but for everyone around her. From then on, Melody played her violin every evening, and the entire village would gather to listen. Children danced in circles, parents sang along, and animals joined in too. The music spread beyond the valley, traveling to distant towns and kingdoms, reminding everyone that joy and unity were always within reach. And though Melody never saw Discord again, she knew that as long as she kept playing and the world kept singing, the shadows could never return. And so, the little girl with her enchanted violin became a legend. Her story passed down through generations. Parents would tell their children how Melody's music defeated the silence. And children would drift to sleep, dreaming of golden butterflies and glowing violins. And perhaps, on certain nights, if the wind carried a sweet tune through the trees, one could still hear Melody's song, protecting the harmony of the world forever. The end.